Good evening. Our top story this week: the idiots are going off in Arizona after finding out that 6,000 calls to the child abuse hotline since 2009 didn't trigger an automatic investigation, while a former Arizona CPS agent blames the lack of accountability as the reason the child protective industry is broken. And even though the state is able to boast a 92% investigation rate, which is part of the reason the system is overwhelmed, Governor Jan Brewer claims that we're not going to rest until every case is investigated. Google and Microsoft decide that they're going to block keywords that help pedophiles find child sex abuse websites. In New York, lawmakers hold a hearing after two major CPS failures where two kids had died regardless of CPS involvement, with it being found that CPS agents only did the least possible amount of work in the cases. And New York schools are sending threatening letters to parents that demand medical or dental checks or treatments with the threat of child protective services for failure to comply. In Illinois, watchdogs are telling CPS to get their thumbs out of their butts after a rash of failures such as kids dying while under their watch. In Tennessee, the child protective industry wants more money to hire more CPS agents. In California, researchers find a high rate of teenage pregnancy among foster kids. And in Georgia, foster parents want more control over what happens to the kids in their care. In Maine, the Wabanaki Indian tribes begin hearings on a first-of-its-kind Truth and Reconciliation Commission to get to the bottom of how they were screwed by the state's cold and unjust child welfare system. In Missouri, the St. Louis Family Court is being investigated by the U.S. Justice Department to see if they are providing due process to all juvenile offenders regardless of race. New research is finding that American kids are less physically fit than their parents were, and that it's been getting worse over the last 50 years, mainly due to the rise of media fear-mongering and the paranoid helicopter parents. Minnesota Representative Michelle Bachmann excludes language that supports lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgendered people from a National Adoption Day congressional resolution. And in Luzerne County, Pennsylvania, foster parents' payments are going to be late. In Malaysia this week, a teenager dies after being abused by her foster parents. In India, an adoption agency closes and shuffles 25 kids to other agencies. And an Indian court thinks that it would be unfair to put an adopted girl back in the orphanage after her parents got divorced. In Canada, a teenager says that his experiences while being held hostage by CAS gave him nightmares. In Saskatchewan, prosecutors aren't going to appeal an acquittal in a case where a foster kid died in a bathtub filled with scalding water. Manitoba's child welfare system is starting to see younger and younger kids committing suicide, with most being in the foster care system. And a child welfare supervisor admits that he could have had sex with a teen in his care, hypothetically. In Australia, the child protective industry is looking into claims of child sex abuse at the Anglican Church. And foster kids in Western Australia are upset after having visits with their real families cut by up to 80%, which the child protective industry is blaming on budget cuts. In England, it is being reported that hundreds of kids, meaning 221 exactly, who are being looked after by the child protective industry have gone missing over the last 2 years. The former adoptive parents of a 16-year-old girl have won the right to talk to the media after the adoption broke down. And the Association of Directors of Children's Services is warning that British social workers are under too much pressure. In entertainment news this week, actor Charlie Sheen pusses out and starts sucking up to child protective services so that they will let him see his sons. And his ex-wife Denise Richards is upset and embarrassed that the letter she sent to CPS agents telling them that she no longer wanted to deal with his kids was leaked to the public. Bond is set for the two North Carolina foster parents who handcuffed a foster kid to the front porch with a dead chicken around his neck, which was allowed to continue even though they lived in a dump and after the real parents complained of abuse in the home. And the biological son of these foster parents say that the kid was no sweet innocent kid and that he probably killed the chicken in order to provoke such a bizarre punishment from the loving foster parents. In Nevada, a former foster mother is indicted after her friend was charged with beating her 2-year-old foster child last year. In New Jersey, an expert testifies that the memories of 6 children who were abused may be unreliable. A New Jersey man pleads not guilty in the death of a 1-year-old foster child. A New York DHS worker who determined eligibility for daycare subsidies was fired after being charged with using her identification to illegally remove a child from the home. And a New York foster father is arrested for pulling the teeth of a disabled 8-year-old girl who was living in his home. In Texas, a rare bone disease causes a father to be falsely charged with child abuse. And finally, tonight, in Pennsylvania, a mother who was all pissed off told reporters that the judge told her to stop breastfeeding so that the 10-month-old could go and visit with her father overnight on the weekends. But according to the judge, such an order had never been made, and the mother was ordered to allow the overnight visits because she didn't honor an earlier visitation agreement and instead tried to keep the kid away from the father. For these stories and all the latest dirt on the child protective industry, visit www.legallykidnapped.com. And until next week, this is Baby LK, over and out.